Angie, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here because we're talking all things podcasting. And I've been following you for several years, but sort of from a distance. And just recently, we kind of came into with Bridgette's Summit, we sort of came into the same space. And I was like, oh, this is my opportunity to reach out and make more contact. And I asked you to come on for a specific task, which is to basically audit my podcast, which feels very vulnerable right now.
That's so exciting. I love that I love that you're open to this
Yeah.
because I do have to tell you that I am very not only am I very off the cuff with like how I do how I run my business, but I am very honest. And so I'm going to just be honest.
Yes, just give it to me.
Yeah. I'm going to give it to you straight.
Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so I've had my podcast since the November or December of 2020, and it was really born out of this desire to really put myself out there in a bigger way and off of social media. But admittedly, like I have not really been super strategic about it until a little bit more recently, and I'm not even sure like that I'm hitting all the points, let's say.
Yeah. Okay. So let's start off. And this would be where I would start with anyone when it comes to their podcast is what is it and you've been doing this for a while, but what is it that you want, that you most desire your podcast to do for you and your business?
I feel like it's a place where I want people to get to know me on a very deeply intimate and personal level, like to really know my heart that doesn't come through my writing on social media. Really, I want them to know like the essence of me so that it
Yeah.
makes their decision to work with me very easy and that they're
Yeah.
already warmed up also when they come into any sort of coaching container with me.
Yeah. Okay. So do you feel like it's accomplishing that?
It does to some degree, but I don't think as it really, it's like yes, and I can improve upon it. Like people definitely come into working with me and say, oh, I loved your podcast episode, or I decided to work with you based on this podcast episode that you said or that you shared. And so I know that people are listening, but I don't think that the pipeline is as, it's like maybe a little clogged in some places, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, awesome. So let's get into like looking at some of your numbers, and then we will look at and then we'll kind of talk about some things, that some opportunities and some ways that you can increase your listenership or actually
Yes.
monetize this thing and get it to be a lot more intentional, because that's what it kind of sounds like you're wanting, which feels like a good place. You got it. You're like pretty consistent. You're pretty consistent, right? From what I looked
Yeah,
at, you're
I'm like
consistent with it.
consistency is like I'm the consistency queen. Like yes, I show up every 2 weeks. I'm here, right? I'm like dropping another episode. Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Because consistency is important when it comes to podcasting. Okay. So let's share your screen.
Okay.
And first, I want you to um, go into your host. So you can go into the back end of Libsyn.
Okay. All right.
And I'll kind of show you some things about what you can even be looking at when it comes to defining your, quote unquote success, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So that's your dashboard. Go into the stats. So before this even like all the way loads, can you
Mhm.
give me like what's your average downloads that you get per episode kind of thing? Like, do you know that off the top of your head?
I never look at the numbers. I mean, I'm like, and this is so ironic because like I'm always telling people to look at their financial numbers, and here I
Yeah.
am like not looking at my stats numbers.
Okay, well that is step 1 for everybody, just
Yeah.
FYI, is you have to start looking because just like, like with financial and looking at those numbers, if you don't know what you're currently producing, then you have no benchmark to know
Yeah.
what's working and what's not working, that kind
Yes.
of thing.
Okay, fabulous. Let's do it.
Okay.
Where do I find that number?
Okay, you're good. Go down to the last 5 episodes.
Okay, here we are.
Okay. So in Libsyn, not every podcast host has this handy dandy metric but I really enjoy it in Libsyn. It's the first 7-day downloads. So you
Mm,
see that down there on your episodes,
yes,
the
the
little
screen one.
greenish blue, yeah.
Yeah.
That one will tell you. And so what is that for? Like, let's just look at the ones that are right here. Just hover over them so we could see. First 7 days, 34.
Mhm. 30,
Hmm.
29, 34, 32.
Okay, perfect. So a good exercise for you to do, and so what this number and the reason why I like this number tells me, it tells me that is, and if you take a good pool of it, maybe, I don't know, a 2-week pool of those, how many episodes you're getting, and get an average how many downloads you're getting on those in the first 7 days. What
Mhm.
this tells me is how many people are pretty much like your core audience listening, because those people are the ones who are like coming every week. You're really consistent, so they're coming every week. They're coming to see what your new things are. They're getting the notifications that are on your on their phone, and they're like,
Yes.
okay, and so those are going to be kind of like your active pool of listeners.
Yeah.
So that, like, go ahead, like, we can just assume it's somewhere around 30,
30. Yeah.
32, whatever. And so that would be something that you would need to mark now, and then in a month you can go back and do sort of the same thing and
Mm,
see if that number is increasing or not.
yes. Okay.
So that is a metric that I like. If you don't have that metric, because some hosts do not have that metric,
Mm,
um, scroll back up, go back up to the top. Um, Maybe it's in your, go to your dashboard. So it doesn't tell you in Libsyn. It's so all of these
yeah.
are completely different. So what I would be looking at in other host would be, you could look at your unique listeners, which I
Okay.
enjoy looking at unique listeners versus downloads, because downloads, I don't know if you know this, but your downloads mean when someone comes and follows your show, that, like, most phone settings have it set, especially on Apple, have it set where every time a new episode comes out, it counts it as a download on that person's phone. It'll download onto your phone, but that doesn't
Mhm.
mean you listen to it.
Got
Okay.
it. Yes.
So if there is if you have a host where you're seeing both of those numbers, I would always look at my unique listeners, because that tells you also not just how many times your episode was played, because maybe it's played more than one time by the same person. That gives you a good pool of who is actually listening, right?
Yes.
So that's something to check. And so the other thing you could do too is you could look at this monthly number, 77. You can look at
Yes.
that monthly number, and that could be something that you track as well.
Okay.
And when you're talking about like podcast analytics, I mean, you're really not wanting to track more than, like, even once a month is a lot. You may not need to track once a month. You may just like do once a quarter,
Yeah.
and that might give you a better picture. It depends on, because I mean, it just takes longer to get back information. It's not like social media. You post something and then you get that instant feedback. Sometimes it just takes
Yes.
a little bit longer. So
Yes.
I would say once a month, maybe, but you'd be okay every other month or every quarter, like looking at your numbers. Since you don't look at them a lot, I would maybe just start doing it like that. And I
Yeah.
would look at that for you. I would look at this 7 day download number and get that average and see how that, after we talk about some things maybe you can implement, let's see how that, number changes.
Okay. Okay. And I guess my next question is that okay if I stop sharing?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You can stop.
My next question would be, given my numbers, right? They're not particularly high. How could I've seen other people do like launches with their podcasts. I've never done anything like that. I've done sort of a more organic invitation to like, hey, if this is was helpful to you, share it with a friend, that kind of thing. But it's never been sort of a more of a strategic kind of getting it out there more. How would you suggest someone,
Yeah.
with my
So a
list?
lot of times if you're in this place that you're in like this, and what I will suggest to people is to do sort of like a new launch. So like a new season, like let's come out with something fresh and new. Is it a new series that we could do? Series perform really well in podcasts, by the way. So putting these series together would be something that you could come out with that would help to encourage listenership. Let's say you know, have something coming up in your business that you're selling, and maybe you're doing, like I always do, like next month I'm doing something called podcast week. And so for podcast week, I did it for private podcast. I had private podcast week, but for podcast week, I'm going to, it's going to be in my group, and but I create a private podcast for it, but I may do it on my public podcast, but it's like,
Oh, I just lost your sound.
hold on,
Now
where
I got you again. Yeah,
okay.
you're back.
Okay.
Yeah. So you said you may do it on your private podcast or your public one.
Yeah. So, like, you can go through and create sort of like a companion to a masterclass or event or launch event or something like that public on your public pod, or some kind of series that is like really relevant. Like, what are people going through right now? What is it that, like, finger on the pulse of your audience? What do they really need?
Mm,
And turning it into kind of like you would think about doing a masterclass or launch event or something, and incorporate your podcast into that.
mm,
You could do something like that. You could do something where you stop, take a pause, and maybe you're creating a new season, or you're refreshing your podcast, or there's a rebrand that you might want to do. Doing like sort of a rebrand and refreshing like some content, or refreshing your, cover photo, things like that,
mm.
and stopping, and then you can generate buzz around some of the newness of your podcast. This is why I do really like when people do seasons,
Yeah.
because it's a great opportunity to be able to like re-engage your audience.
Yes. Yes. And I've
So
had like, based on my own, even not just evolution in my business, but my personal evolution, I've been like, I remember like one season was about relationships, about like intimacy and embodiment and relationships. And then I'm just like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm moving on to money or whatever it is. And then it really sort of fit within
yeah.
the seasons, and some people have followed me throughout all of those changes and all the, but I feel like, yes, I'm really wanting to focus on money from a specific perspective. But yes, I do feel like there is I want to change the name of my podcast, but I don't really, nothing has come up yet, like something that feels more punchy and relevant to what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like this could be, and that could be what you do, and just depending on what is actually going on in your business. And so here's the thing about making this work for your business, which is really my thing
Yeah.
that I
Yes.
do and that I'm really passionate about, because you're super consistent, but a lot of people struggle with consistency. And the biggest reason that we struggle with it is because you're not getting any return from what you're doing. And so, in order to see the quickest return, in order to make this feel like it's worthwhile doing, you have to really incorporate it into what you're doing in your business and making it work for your business in every way
Yes.
possible and
Tie it
really
in.
maximizing every way possible. The
Yeah.
more you can do that, the more you're going to feel like you're getting a return, regardless of whether you have a client coming from it or not, because you're using this in like this long form content kind of as the anchor for all of your content creation. So
Mm,
the result is you're maximizing this content in so many different ways. So I'll give you an example. Like, so from your podcast,
yeah.
um, because you have quite a few episodes. Do you know how many episodes you have?
Oof. Um, this is my fourth season and I have
Yeah, you
20
have a lot.
per season. So about like into the set like 70.
You have a lot. Yeah. So something that you can do is you can go in here in your old episodes. And again, I'm all about let's maximize what you have already created. And so you have an episode that is about, because you do have a lot of range of what you talk about in here. Um,
Yeah, first season was just interviewing entrepreneurs and talking about like how their trauma healing contributed to their like what they decided to do for their business and their business model.
yeah. So I'm looking here, like in your season 3, you talked
Mhm.
several episodes about money.
Yeah.
And so this is an opportunity where you could take, I don't know, 3 of those episodes or so, right? And you could group those episodes together as a training or as like this mini training, put it on your website. And it's like how to master the energetics of money. Write your blog post. Here's 3 steps. Step 1 that pertains to this episode. You embed your episode in there. You have your little blurb about it, embed your episode. Step 2, this is this about this, part
Hmm.
about mastering money. Here, embed the episode, whatever. So it becomes like a little training for people. And
Yeah.
what you can do is from your social media and when you're sharing your podcast, you can start to share it in a way that just is much more meaningful to the people who may want to come because you're saying, hey, if you want to master the energetics of your money, click here. Here you go. It's 3 episodes broken down. It's like using it as a training for people. This will help with your SEO of your podcast. And it's also like I said, dual purpose. We want to maximize your efforts for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so we're going to put those together. So if you're on maybe in the during the week, you decide every week on Instagram, you'll share, hey, I have this free training, master your energetics around money. And so you'll share that in addition to sharing, whatever episode happened that week, right? And so it's just a better way to share and it's a way to come in and where people will understand and get value. And if you can get people to listen to 3 episodes or 5 episodes on your podcast, like that's really warming those people up. Like that's really good retention if people are feeling like they're getting this value. So that's like one thing that I always have my clients do when they have like long-standing podcasts because they have all this content sitting here. So
Right.
how do we maximize it? So
Yes.
is there other episodes? And I know whenever I'm teaching my clients to create their seasons, part of my framework includes like that very first episode being really about like their mission and what they're like what this is about and what these people are going to get and why they should listen, whatever. um that is sometimes a really good episode to have in a welcome sequence for your email. So if you have this episode that's all about you, what you believe, the polarizing things that you stand for, and when someone is introduced to your world through some sort of freebie out there, the next email becomes this email that, like you said, you want to build these relationships and people to get to know you. Well, this is a beautiful way to now they're actually getting to know you. And so you don't have to make up something completely different because you're
Right.
maximizing your content.
Yes.
And then you're bringing people into your podcast. So it works in so many different ways. And so
Right.
that's the key. And that's what I'm always wanting people to sort of see and set their podcast up in that way. I've even had where if you're in the middle of, or you have like a signature course or framework or something that you like a signature program, eh, do podcast episodes about the objections that people have joining your program.
Mm.
When people ask you questions, you can point back to the podcast episode. You could put the podcast episode on your sales page.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's just thinking about it differently instead of like how a lot of people think about it, which is, I just got to find a topic for this week to talk about. Like, let's make it a little bit more
Intentional
meaningful.
and
So
connect.
going forward, if your goal in the next 90 days is that you want to convert someone directly from your podcast into your program, if you want to do that, how are you being intentional? What content needs to be created in order for you to do that? What needs to be set up on the back end? How do you do that?
Mm, mm.
Is that one of your goals? Do you want to do that?
Yeah, I want to do that.
Do you want to do that? Okay. So what is your thing that you would want to sell?
I have this basically this one-on-one money mentorship called Wealth. And it is 7 sessions with me. It is, basically it's ancestral healing. It also includes like a course where people can do actual like practical exercises, somatics. There's like magical practices, creative practices, and even like just practical stuff like opening up your bank account, looking at your numbers, taking a breath, right? Having a date night with money, those kinds of things. And then on top of that, I also provide a comprehensive financial strategy. Basically, I get a sense of what your goals and dreams are, your financial goals and dreams, and we set up a plan to like get you there. So I do the practical side of the finance, and I also do the ancestral healing, the stuff that the unconscious shadowy work that gets in the way.
Okay. Is that what you do all the time in your business or you have other offers?
I have other offers, but that
The
is like my
core.
signature offer. Yeah. It's the
Okay.
only offer where I blend the practical and the woo.
Okay. What it I because I really truly don't know. Tell me what devotional anarchy is.
Yeah, it's been bothering me a lot lately. Basically, like that came up more around when I was doing like relationship anarchy stuff, and devotional for me is like, I'm a little bit of a rebel. I'm a countercultural person. And devotional is like doing countercultural work, but from the heart, not from the head, but doing it from a place of like dedication, devotion, commitment to healing. And by healing the internalized systems of oppression, we like liberate ourselves and other people around us.
Okay. So I would say if we want to draw the shortest line from point A to point B, we need to get a lot more clear in your podcast title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lot more clear. And like and this is also like a you thing. Like do you think, because don't know if I don't know if your ideal client really resonates with that or not. You would know that. But also, I think I could be your ideal client, but I would never resonate with that,
Okay.
you know? And
Yeah.
it's only because like I don't know, at the core we're just simple.
It's
You
like,
know,
what is it? It's like the caveman test. Like, what is it? Do I understand it? If I don't understand it, I move on, right? It's that
we're
kind of,
fast like that, and
yeah.
especially when it comes like in the podcast app, and this is the thing. So if I was going to draw the shortest line in 90 days for you to like, let's do a rebrand, let's come out with a new season, new content, I would literally like, you need to like change your name. It needs to be, what would the people who most need this one-on-one work, what do they really, really want? Like, what are they really looking for? Like, are they looking for devotional anarchy? Are they looking like what are they looking for? What's the result that they're going to get? What's going to make them? And I'm not saying that you have to be like make some plain Jane name because sometimes like curiosity can be sparked by a name and sometimes curiosity can be good too and
Yeah.
effective in a name. However, like it has to be something that's going to like perk up our ears, our eyes when we're looking through it and say, "Oh, this could be for me," you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. I named my podcast the name I named it, Podcast That Pays, for a reason. A lot of people are so resistant to like niching down or like being too specific because I mean, I get it. I get it. It gets boring. You feel like you're boxed into something, blah, blah, blah. You do. And I'm not any different than anyone else. However, the people who come to listen to my podcast, do you know what I know about them for sure?
What is that?
I know they want a podcast or they have a podcast, or else they're not coming to listen to podcasts that pays. Like, do you know how good that feels though? How clear that is?
Yeah. Yeah.
How easy that is to understand that all these people who are listening to my podcast are already a little bit warm by default. They want the thing that I'm selling. I know that they are a possible ideal client because of how I've positioned my podcast.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you want to ensure that everyone who's coming to your podcast could be is aligned with working with you, then you've got to position your podcast in a way where there's no room for interpretation. And
Yeah.
that's okay. It's okay in some cases. And like I said, I will always give the caveat if you want to draw the shortest line from point A to point B. I'm not telling you that you can't get from point A to point B without doing this because I believe everybody has their own way. You can do whatever you want to do. God bless. But I'm telling you, the shortest line is to be as specific as possible.
Yeah.
And I got this question on TikTok today. I just like made a response video and it was so funny because she was just like, my problem is I don't know what to name my podcast, like can you change it later on down the road? And my response video was really really snarky, like go figure, but I was just like, why are we laboring over this so much? Yes, you can change the name of your podcast, but like have you even started one yet, girl? Like, you haven't even gotten on the horse and you are over here already so worried. I'm telling you, everybody is so worried about this niching it down and the name and being able to change it. Your podcast, and you've seen this, so you can raise your hand and say, this is
Yeah.
true. Your podcast will grow and evolve as you grow and evolve.
Absolutely.
You are at a place now where you're ready to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. That will happen. It may happen 3, 4 more times.
Yeah.
That's okay, but you have to do the thing that feels present now. And so especially when you're small, so you're still relatively really small and getting really small numbers. And I'm not saying like it depends as far as numbers go because everybody's always like, what's a good numbers of downloads? I'm like, it really, really vastly depends. It depends on what like niche that you're in big
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
from what I see with helping people who are coaches, consultants, like service providers
Yeah.
online,
Yeah.
I would say the range that I most commonly see are anywhere from like where you're at, 20 downloads an episode, and all the way up to I've seen about like 500. I've not seen a lot. Very rare to see a lot of people who are like over 1,000 downloads per episode in this niche. Just
Yeah.
FYI to
Yeah.
everyone who thinks that they need 8,000 million downloads. That is really above what is the average.
Okay. That's great to know.
So being somewhere in this niche in the 100s would be
Solid.
probably really solid. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So we had to
Great.
get those numbers. We have to get those, numbers up. And if you're going for, like, I would challenge you to go in and take that average of like this past month and then go look at January and see where you were in January. And if you're in the
Yes.
exact same place, so you need to do something different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You need to be more intentional about your growth. So a rebrand would be really great for you. I would I would really dig into this name thing. What
Yeah.
do people really want? I feel like I always say like if I taught people about money, I would make so much money because 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 I just have so many different like messaging ideas in my mind around this, but you really have to think about what is the most current thing that people are going through. Who do you help? Do you help business owners or just anyone?
Mostly entrepreneurs, but like I feel like I see kind of like the, both people who are like just starting out in business, who are entrepreneurs, or more like the spiritual, your light worker types, your body workers, like those kinds of folks who are just starting out, and then like higher end people who are already making, multiple six figures.
Yeah, so I feel like what's really present in the industry right now around money is that some people have struggling to get clients.
Yeah.
People are waking up realizing they invested a bunch of money in a bunch of coaches that didn't pan out for them.
Yeah.
People are realizing the importance of like having your shit together for when your sales are bad,
Yeah.
that you should have set yourself up differently financially. Like these are all really present things that you could position yourself as the sort of like answer. And then always ever present in the spiritual world is talking about money in that practical perspective. It's like
Yes.
witches need money too,
Yeah,
like
exactly, exactly. That's like
a good one. That's a good one. Witches need money too. And so, because a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs are like kind of loose and free and oh, they're gonna be in a piss. So it's
yep.
like, yep, let's do this, but
It's
let's
not
also
grounded. It's not grounded in the
marry.
tactic. Yeah. That's
So
that's a lot of what I work with.
it could be that's the angle that's blaring to us is just like, where you're coming in and although you're woo and all about generation and some of these deeper spiritual things, you're coming in and saying, like that's not it. That's not all to it. Like
Right.
you need this. And so you're coming in like it with this angle of I'm woo too, but like woo is not going to help you run a
Who
sustainable
doesn't pay the
business.
bills? Yeah, it doesn't pay the bills. Yeah.
So that is a good, that's good positioning right there. Or,
Mhm.
how do you position yourself where you're talking about like building solid foundations with your money. It sounds really boring, but like that's the thing. Or using what's happening currently in the industry to position yourself in this way, I think would
Right.
be really, really on target right now
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah.
So
It's really all this season has been all about that, talking about multiple streams of income, right? And having a safety net account for your business, right? In case things slow down. Like all of that stuff is what I incorporate. That I'm definitely that voice of like, yeah, like let's not be in spiritual bypass when talking about our money. Like this is not that we're not more spiritual by not looking at managing our money, right? And then also the piece around like building the safety, the internal safety and the trust that you can hold, right? Greater amounts of money, and yeah, building that capacity, right? Looking at the nervous system aspects of things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I will just give you like a quick, framework to use if you're going to do this as far as your content. I would do, like I said, episode 1. And this is on my podcast too. So like if anybody's listening, they like want me to you want to get a breakdown of using this framework, it's over there too. So episode 1, all about your mission. So this is like who you are, what polar I hate to say this, but I call it Donald Trump marketing. It's a perfect explanation. It like almost needs no explanation. It's just like say the shit that nobody else will say around the thing, and it will polarize the people. It will bring the people to you that are like
Right, right.
crazy about you.
Yeah,
Like that's one thing that we've seen. So, what are those things? What are those things that you're staking your claim on that could be that are like different, or the things that other people won't say, or the things that you firmly believe that make you who you are? That
yeah.
so when someone listens to that episode, they're going to really either really resonate with you or they're going to be like, this chick is not for me. That's what you want.
Yeah.
And also in that episode, you want to really be telling them what's in this for them.
Mm.
So a couple of questions you want answered in that episode. Number one, what is their result from listening to this new season? Let's just say like that you're going to do. What result are they going to get? So they're going to be able to get clear on what their money goals are. They're going to be able to get clear, whatever that result is. And then number two, when they get that result, how does that affect their immediate circle? So, them being clear, them expanding their mind about their money, them laying down this foundation, how does that affect how they are with their family at home? How does that affect what kind of partner they are? How does that affect what kind of business owner they are? How does that affect what kind of boss? How does that affect how they show up for their clients? What are all those residual benefits that are going to happen in their life from getting this result that you're going to give them from listening to this? And then the third part is, what is the overall thing that you are shifting with what you're doing? What's that overall narrative that you're shifting? So it's the narrative of being a spiritual entrepreneur and only manifesting money, but like not doing anything foundational or
Or
not being,
practical, or actually like
yeah,
investing their money as you earn it. Just kind of like, oh, I'm attracting money and I'm right. Like I'm in my pussy verse and it's all coming to me and it's all working. That is wonderful.
yes.
And like, let's start investing some.
And exactly, because I feel like, and this is a good messaging angle, is I feel like there's a lot of people, because this has been true and has happened in my own life. I have been so expanded on what I believe is possible. I grew up making $60,000 a year was like, that's what you did. That was good.
Yeah.
I never knew that people were making like 40, 50, $60,000 a month. Like that just wasn't in my realm
Right.
of possibilities.
Yeah.
Mine was like, oh, if you get to make six figures, okay. I never knew. And then I got around those people and now it's expanded on what I think people can earn. But
Right.
then I got around a friend of mine who works with like venture capitalists and financial people here, the bankers, finance bankers, whatever, in New York City. And we went to dinner the other night and she's like talking about stuff that I was like, what the fuck? Like I know nothing about wealth and how these really wealthy, ultra wealthy people think about business.
Mhm.
Like start a business and like sit here and spend all this time on social media, like begging people to buy your stuff. No, they would never.
No.
They would never. But anyway, so it's just like about expanding that and really understanding like that's two different things. Like being able to attract money and being able to know that it's available to you, and building this foundation and building wealth, two different things.
Yes. Two
And
different
so
skills.
two different things. And what you're doing is marrying the two of them, which is
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
So anyway, that's your first episode. Go into that. Your next episodes would be all around like like myths. Like you want to bust myths. You want to bust myths. So whatever myths people have about money, wealth, all of that, manifesting, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then also things you want those people, your ideal people, to stop and start doing. So something you commonly see people start, like stop, whatever you want them to, you want to just like strangle them and be like, stop
Stop
doing.
this, do that.
Yes. So those you want to do, those are your next set of episodes. Then the set of episodes after that, and this just depends on how long your season is or how many episodes
Yeah.
can fit into that.
Yeah.
Your next episodes after that, you want to focus on your framework and what you do and how you move people through point A to point B. So now you've told them all the stuff to stop. You've told them like you busted all these myths and they're ready. They think that this can work for them. And now you're highlighting your expertise, right? So that's what you're going to do next. And not in the way where you're coming on and teaching. Because remember, podcast platform is not, we're not in a master class. Nobody is sitting down taking notes, and we're not sitting at a workshop. We're outside. I used to always tell people I'm outside walking my dog, picking up shit when I'm listening. I'm not writing down your three top points. I'm not doing it. I'm picking up shit. My little 9-pound chihuahua that would like go to the bathroom 4 different times on our walks. So not doing it. So anyway, you want to really, when you're talking about your framework, you really want to be showing them through story and through how you've helped other clients, how like what this piece is. So maybe you are like not just showing them, but maybe you are some things you might have to actually explain.
Yeah.
So some things you might have to say, this is what this piece is. I would like save that conversation for a different day to say. But we legit, I'm in my like co-working space at my apartment, and there is like the rudest. I mean, they're just the rudest freaking people that I ever met in my life here. But anyhow,
Yeah.
another conversation for another day. It's not as bad as the day they came in and I was in the room and they started putting the blinds down and like setting up to like do whatever they were doing, like I wasn't there.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah. Anyhow, so you want to be talking about your framework, like defining what it is and really showing the case for why people need this part. Why is this important?
Mhm.
Not necessarily this is what it is and here's how to do it. So it's like, what is
Okay.
this? Why do you need it?
Yes.
Let me show you a story of my client when she implemented this kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So that's really like your like a simple little framework that you can use to help people
Yeah.
be
Just kind of,
ready to buy from you from the
yeah.
thing that you're wanting, right? And then what are you currently doing right now? What's your call to action from your podcast?
Call to action is to get on my email list. I have a 3-part money series that people can engage in, and it's basically like a money activation and increasing their money confidence as well. So there's a little bit of there is like almost like a sampling of what they would get in my wealth program. So they get a little bit of the woo stuff, they get some of the practical financial education and tools as part of that, and then there's an email series that follows that invites them into my one-on-one container.
How is that converting?
It is not.
How do
I
you
mean,
know?
once in a while, but like, you know, I wanna.
So do you have something like set up where you can actually see how many people are even coming to this from your podcast? Like coming to your sales page for this?
I don't know how many people are coming from the podcast. Yeah.
Okay. We
I
write
think
that
they
down
might be coming through
as
my social media.
yeah, okay. Write that down as things to do. This
Okay.
is like do your KPIs and then
Okay.
you need to know because it's another really big this is the only KPI I really care about, to be honest.
Mhm.
How many people are taking action on what I'm telling them to take action on? And I'll
Okay.
tell you how I do it because I'm very tech averse. It's hilarious. Like my husband's like, how do you have this business? Somebody asked me earlier, can you send me the photos in an iCloud link? I was like, I don't know. Can I have to do it? So anyway, this is how I do it. So I want people to join my membership from
Yeah.
my podcast, right? So what I do is I take, I have my membership sales page. I've taken that sales page and I duplicate it.
And you have it connected to the podcast.
So what I do is, so my website is, angiemjordan.com. So my membership is like angiemjordan.com/the lab, right?
Yeah.
So when I duplicate it, it's angiemjordan.com/the lab one. It's just like has a one on it, whatever. Now I take my URL from my podcast, which is I just use the name of my podcast, podcastthatpays.com, and I just forward it to the duplicated page.
Mm-hmm.
And I only use podcastthatpays.com from my podcast. You will not hear that anywhere else. I don't drop that link
Right.
anywhere. It's
Right.
from there. So that's an easy way for me to be able to see who's coming because I know that no one else gets that link anywhere else. I don't drop it. They're not coming from social. They're coming there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do something. I want to I want to say they're called UTMs. I was about to say UTIs.
I was gonna.
Sorry, that's not right. That's not right. Like, that's not right. But they're called UTMs. And if you can also set those up some kind of way. If you're somebody who's techie, just FYI, you don't have to do it this way. You can set up UTMs and you can see where exactly people are coming from. But I also don't feel like it cannot be as accurate, because here's why. When you are listening to a podcast, I feel like it's a lot like, here's the scenario, here's how it is. Again, I'm picking up shit listening to your podcast. I'm not thinking about taking action. I'm not, whatever. But let's say I'm listening to one of your episodes. I'm really inspired by it. I'm like, okay, I need to check that out. But like, I'm walking my dog. So later on that night, I sit on the sofa. I got Netflix on. Something on that show sparks my remembrance. And I'm like, oh yeah, I wanted to check this girl's thing out. I wanted to go look at this offer because I really need to get my money shit together. So what do? Do I go in and try to dig and find her URL link, her long ass, messy ass URL link, like angiejordan.com/the lab./get started? Or do I do that? Or has this person made a really clean, neat, easy to remember URL that
Um,
repeats every single time, so I know if I want to work with Angie further, I'm just going to podcastthatpays.com, because I'm not really listening to all these different offers she's dropping on her podcast. I'm not listening to go download the worksheet at angiemjordan.com/get started/123.
right,
Like,
right.
I know, because Angie has leveraged the power of simplicity and repetition, which we need
Mm-hmm.
to really instill that. Now that I'm sitting down, I can be like, oh yeah, I'm going to podcastthatpays.com to find what I need, right?
Got it.
So
Got it.
that's other to-dos you can add to the
Yes.
list of
Yes.
things, so that
Yeah.
you want to make it simple, you want to make it memorable, you want to make it easy. You don't want to give a lot of different calls to actions. You want the same call to action, results-based call to action. Nobody cares about your program. People care about the results that you're getting. So if you are ready to unlock your highest potential, your highest earning potential, and really build wealth, come to suchandsuch.com. That's where you're going to do that. They don't care what that leads to. They
Mm-hmm.
only care about the results. So you don't need to say,
Yes.
I've got this, 3-part training that you can get. We don't
Yeah.
want to do no work and be trained.
Right.
Just tell us the result. We want
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how you want to do your calls to action in that way. And make sure you have them in a commercial in the middle of your episode, not just at the end.
Okay. Yeah. I
Okay.
usually do them at the beginning, but it's good to have them
You
in
can
the.
do them in the beginning. You can do them in the beginning. That's fine. As long as you don't put them at the end,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
I mean, you can reiterate them at the end, but don't just put them at the end.
Yes. I hear you.
And
Okay.
then now, once you set it up like this, you can, again, every month, as you're going to track also those other KPIs, track how many people are coming to this page. You can start to see a correlation between, let's say you decide to drop a podcast series about something, right? You may see an uptick in how many people are coming over to your sales page from your podcast.
Right.
And so that will give you more information, because remember, marketing is all about collecting data. It will give you that data to see what's working, what's not working, what is making people move, what's not. If you
Yes.
change your commercial, maybe, and you'll notice a change, but you'll be able to start tracking and seeing like what is actually moving the needle here.
Yes. No, I love
And
it.
that's what you should be focused on. I could talk about this for days. I'm sorry. I don't
No,
even have a concept of time right now. So
no, this is fantastic. And I do want to wrap up. But this has been so, I feel like in the short time that we were just sitting here together, like you covered so much,
I
right?
did.
You covered like just like the tech pieces, but also like conceptual and like step by step, like guiding customers through a journey with you to get to
Yes.
know you, almost like an email warm-up series would be, except for the podcast, and then tying it together. I think that was like, I feel very
Yeah.
I feel a lot
Good.
clearer about the next
Good.
steps. Thought that this was also very
Yeah.
helpful for anybody who's listening. So thank you.
And just make sure for you personally, as you do this like rebrand,
Yeah.
you need to do some sort of event with it. So, like, make it
Yes.
something fun, make it something like tie it to like the event. Like I was just telling you, like you can do tie it to like a sales event or tie it to like a giveaway if you have that kind of rapport with your audience. Some people don't. Some people could do a giveaway and it'd be crickets. But so you have to make sure like your audience would actually respond because that it's really would be sad for you if you tried to give something away and no one even did anything
Nobody
for the
showed up to the
giveaway.
party.
Nobody even showed up to get something free from you. But sometimes if you don't really have like a that core really active community, that's really normal. So
Yeah.
but do something fun and exciting to, and get people like really push this like new angle, new branding, new season of your podcast, and you will see those numbers go up. And then so you can think about it. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. I can do that like once a quarter or something and
Yeah.
incorporate something fun so that people can come and listen.
Okay.
So
That's
yeah,
amazing. Thank you so much, Angie. And I wanted to
you're
ask you,
welcome.
like, how can people find you? I'm, obviously podcast that pays, right? To
Yep, that's
get up
it.
in your podcast and you're on TikTok.
I love TikTok, let me just tell you, but I'm on all the platforms as Angie M as in Marie Jordan. So
Okay.
you can Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, hang out with me there. But my preference is 1,000% come and listen to my podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
You'll get some good nuggets there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And I did listen to the series about like monetizing your podcast. I thought that was so helpful. So
Yeah.
if you're listening to this, go find Angie on podcast that pays.
Yay. This was so fun. I
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on and like this has been fun. I
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.